First of all, Jeff, as we head towards the property, tell me how you got this deal.
This was an estate deal that we got through a realtor referral. The person that had lived here all their life passed away, and the family needed to dispose of the property, so we stepped in to help them get rid of it. It wasn't in a condition that they could put it on the market and actually sell it to an owner occupant, so which makes it kind of a perfect fit for our model to kind of step in and help the family out of a situation, to get them to unload the property and move on, and for us to come in and be able to have it as a good rental.
How do you get a lead like that?
Man, that is typically it's a relationship. So we spend a lot of time, talking to realtors, let them know what we're looking for, working with individuals to let them know what makes the right fit for us. And then, of course, the biggest thing is that when they bring us a lead and it's a fit for us, we got to perform on it. Right. So that's the thing is if you can get a relationship to where you meet with somebody and, you start doing some deals with them, they know that you're going to perform, then they're going to be more apt to send you more leads.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. Well, let's take a tour.
Okay, so this is actually a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house that we have to do this. So the siding on this had some troubles. So we're having to redo siding. All of the windows were the original windows, aluminum windows from the house. Whenever we go into a house, we don't like to. I don't like using this term, but it's lipstick on a pig. A lot of people you'll find will want to just kind of do just the bare necessities just to get it looking pretty, right. Cosmetic finishes on it. We think that long term that's just not the right play, because you're going to get eat up with maintenance expenses and things. All your cash flow is going to get hit every month because you're going to have little things pop up that you could have just prevented in the front end. So we'll go in and we'll make sure that the electrical and the HVAC and the plumbing and all of those major systems, the roof, windows, we make sure all of those things are in good operational condition, and if they need to be upgraded, then we will upgrade. So this particular property luckily already had a roof. The roof is very new on it, but the windows were all bad. There was a lot of rot on the siding, and we'll see that in a minute. We walk around where we're having to reframe this whole right side of the wall and get some structural stuff fixed underneath, and then we'll fix the other siding that needs to be repaired, and then of course make sure everything's done so that it will kind of get as maintenance free as we possibly can over the life of the house. And if we choose to sell this house, we know that when we sell it to an investor that wants it for their cash flow portfolio, we'll know that we're giving them a great product and that they're not going to have to deal with the same types of issues down the road. Right. So we kind of like to we put our name on everything. We want to make sure that it's quality product.
Yeah.
So
what year was this house built? I imagine in 50s.
This house was
50s?
Yeah, I think it was 1952. This house was built. It's about 1,200 square feet.
Okay.
Total. Like I said, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. There was a later addition on the back that added a master suite and a bathroom, and so it just works really well. A 3.2 is a perfect, 3.2, 12 to 1,500 square feet, perfect rental house. You can usually get a good, nice little family to come in. This house will rent in the $1,500 to $1,600.
Come on.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. With under Section 8. They will actually pay up to $1,700 for these types of properties.
Yeah.
So
just give me that just seems insane to me. Give me an idea where the rents might have been 5 years ago.
5 years ago, you would have been lucky to get $850 to $900 a month out of this house.
So you're sitting here telling me the rents have increased by 80%.
Yeah, rents have almost doubled. We have several of our properties that we've owned for several years, and we've had long-term tenants in those properties, but we're now at the point where we're like, well, we've got to turn those properties over and get new tenants in there, because the rents, because of the increase in insurance or because of the increase in taxes and all of that, if the rents don't get adjusted, then you basically become cash flow negative on those properties really quick. So that's really been helped. The increase in rents, cost of living has gone up. So that's something that has to be factored in for it. But yeah, who would have thought, 5 years ago we would be getting double the types of rent that we were getting now. So and back then we were happy to get $900 a month for a
900 would have been outrageous over here.
Right.
5 or 6 years ago. Okay, cool. So we're taking windows out, we're fixing siding on the exterior, and then even over here we're fixing some siding. We've already put a window in over here. I mean, this is obviously all stuff that you already knew you were going to do well before you purchased the property,
right?
And talk about the expense of some of these exterior items.
So when we come into a property that we're looking to purchase, I guess understanding construction and have been in the construction industry for a while, it's relatively easy for me to kind of identify the things and kind of look behind the walls per se to understand what things we're going to be faced with. So we knew when we came in that all of this siding was not done properly. It was old. It was getting water intrusion behind it. So we figured that we were going to, at a minimum, we're going to have to replace some siding. We would probably have some rotten studs in the walls that would need to be redone, and then of course the band. And this is one that trips a lot of people, is this your band on your building, which sits on your foundation, which is basically the bedrock of your house. In these older houses, it is very common to find that band has rotted out, and you'll have sag in the floor, you'll have bad joists, floor joists in the house. And so you really have to anticipate that on any of the older projects that you do. Anything that's 1950 to 1960s, odds are that has not been addressed at any time. And so you're going to just plan for that and calculate that into your calculations when your numbers. When we looked at a house like this, siding is going to run you somewhere in the range of $8 to $10 a foot on your stuff. Your bands are going to cost you, this particular band probably cost us in materials and labor in the range of maybe $250 to get done. And the thing is, you got to have a contractor that knows how to do that, because you're lifting a house up off the foundation to make sure that it's done correctly.
So help me understand that, because I don't know construction, and I don't know what a band is. So this is, you're literally talking about what sits on the block.
Your foundation stops here. You have a band. It's usually a 2x8 or a 2x10 band.
Got it. And it goes around the house.
And it goes all the way around the perimeter of your house. And that's what your floor system attaches to and sits on. And so it's really the
and you're
base.
Replacing the whole thing all the way around?
This one did not have to be replaced all the way around. This was the worst side. So this is we have one spot on the other side that has to be replaced. And when you take them apart, you don't have to replace the whole thing unless it's all rotten. Right. So you just have to determine what area is bad, and then you have to cut that bad area out and then put in a new section. So, but those are things, especially in the older houses, that you have to either have an inspector look at, or if you're qualified to do it, to be able to look at those types of things, because those are things that'll come back and bite you if you're not careful. And the last thing you want to do is get into a property, and the next thing you know, your floor is starting to fall in and cave in, and you put a bunch of flooring in.
But Jeff, don't we just jack those up from up underneath, right?
Yeah, right. You just put some 4x4s underneath it, and they'll take care of it.
Well, I've seen a lot of that, right?
You do. So that's the weekend guy that comes in and just wants to put lipstick on the pig, or put a Band-Aid on it, and then try to pass it along to the next guy. Not something that I'm comfortable doing. If we're going to do it, we go and do it right, because we hold property ourselves, and we like to hold them long term. And so the last thing I want to do is get into a property, and the time to fix it is at the beginning, because that's when you get your budgets right. That's when you've got your numbers right for your construction, and it's harder down the road to come back and allocate more funds after the rehab.
Sure.
So that drains more on your cash flow. So the more you can catch on the front end, the better.
Yeah. Okay, and so this over here, this is an addition, or no, back here's the addition.
Yeah, so this was the later addition, where they added in master bedroom and a bed and a bathroom suite off of this section here. So I particularly like crawl space houses, especially for rentals, because they're easy to access. All of your plumbing, your electrical, anything that's run underneath, any HVAC ductwork and things like that there. I know a lot of people gravitate to slabs or to basement houses. I'm just really particular on my rentals. I really like to have a crawl space, because it just gives us the ability to get in and get out and access all of the systems a lot easier.
Most of this area, especially the downtown area, is going to be crawl space.
Yeah, a lot of that here is crawl space, but what you find is this is a good sized crawl space. what you find a lot of times is you'll find a really shallow crawl space, and you can barely even crawl into that thing, which means it makes it much more difficult to get your systems run through, especially HVAC for ductwork and things of that nature. So just, you know, having at least a 3 foot, 2.5 foot reason definitely makes it beneficial to get in. One of the things we always go in and do is we'll change any old galvanized plumbing. We'll take galvanized plumbing out. We'll put PEX, plumbing PEX and PVC.
You'll just do that even if it's working. You'll just do that as preventative.
Even if it's working, yeah. Because here's what happens: the first time you move a tenant in here and you haven't gone in that wall and changed that vanity sink pipe plumbing, they're going to clog it up immediately. It is without fail. It will happen every single time. We've learned our lesson from that many times over, is that if you don't take a galvanized pipe out of a wall in a house that was built in 1950, if it's the original piping, then you will guaranteed have problems out of that piping as soon as that first tenant moves in there.
Yeah.
So you're better off just to take it, fix it, get it done while you got everything done, and it's not that much more of a cost.
What about I guess the header line, the pipe that goes to the sewer pipe that goes to the sewer that connects from the house to the sewer? I've typically seen a lot of that in these type of houses that are built in the 40s and 50s and early 60s. How do you can't even really check for stuff like that, can you?
You can. So you can get your plumber to come out and do what's called a scope on the line, and they'll have a camera on the end of their line. They'll run that line through there, make sure there's no cracks, make sure there's no tears in the line, no roots or anything like that getting in the line. It's well worth. You'll spend probably about $150 to $175 to get them to do that, but it is well worth it, because you're going to spend $4,000 on it at a minimum if you get in there and find out that there is something in there. So then that's something you want to do during your inspection period.
Before you buy it.
Yeah, before you buy it, because you want to know that when you get in there, unless you just automatically calculate that. Yeah, it's a huge expense. You know, we just did one over in another part of town, and we got into it, and a tree root had come in and taken it. I had to drill into the road, which we weren't anticipating, so we took a $7,000 hit on that property right out of the gate, because we didn't anticipate the main being cracked at the road. So highly recommend doing a sewer inspection on your lines.
All right. What's the biggest, you mentioned the roof is kind of already, you don't need to really do anything with the roof. What's going to be the biggest expense out here on the exterior? The windows?
Windows and the siding. Yeah, windows and the siding are going to be the biggest expense on this. This house has what they call 105 siding. It's an older style siding, and you have to go to a specific supplier to get that siding.
Now you're going to go back with that?
We are going to go back with that, because we're not doing the entire house. If we were having to do entire sides of the house, we would go back with like a hardy siding, which is, you know, rot free and just a lot more economical, and over time will last longer. But something like this, we can salvage what's here, make it right, and fix the damaged pieces that need to be removed, and it'll be good for another 60, 70 years with it. So those are things you got to weigh cost wise versus you know, what necessarily needs to be done. You know, yeah, we could come in here, we could strip all of this old siding off and put either vinyl siding up, or we could put hardy siding up, but the cost just doesn't warrant it. It just doesn't make sense to go do that when we can fix what's necessary, and it'll be good for another 50, 60 years.
Now, will you paint it out here once you get the new siding on?
Oh yes, yeah, everything will
paint the whole
house will get painted. We'll do obviously we're putting new energy efficient windows in. All of those will be taped off, water sealed. Everything will be done to make sure that down the road we don't have issues with water intrusion in the house. Water is probably the biggest thing that you want to prohibit on the exterior of a house. That's the thing that gets in and causes damage and rot, and causes you a lot of expense down the road. So you want to do everything you possibly can to seal the envelope of the house to make sure that water doesn't get in.
Okay, so what about the inside? I don't think the power's on, right?
The power is on.
Oh, the power is on. Okay.
Yeah. As long as we got light bulbs.
Okay. Let's go through here a little bit and see, because you're sitting here talking about a house that someone probably lived in this house for a long period of time, and they probably didn't do a whole lot. So tell me we're going to start here. We entered the back door
Okay.
Tell me what we're going to do here in the kitchen.
Okay. So one of the things that we have in this kitchen is, if you notice, there's really not a place to eat. I mean, they've got a table here, but there's really no common area for someone, and you don't have a specific dining area. I always like to kind of think about a house, if I'm going to be living in it, what are some of the things that I would be in tune to want, and obviously you'd want to dedicate, if you're going to have a family, you want to have a place to have for dinner. And so this kitchen, with it being a galley kitchen, doesn't really set up like that right now. So one of the things we'll do is we're going to reposition some things. We're gonna take this out, and we're gonna move the refrigerator over to this side to get it out of the way. And then the kitchen area, the sink area, we're going to actually transition to over on this side. So our goal is to open this area up and make this into an area where you could put a table and chairs and be able to have a family dinner.
Almost like a little dining room or a kitchen.
Yeah, almost a little dining room area. So that'll help with obviously the rentability as well. The more features that you can put in, that creature comforts will help. So
what'd you call this? A galley?
Yeah, it's called a galley kitchen. So that came from an old shipping term, but it's basically just a straight shot kitchen on both sides, or cabinetry on both sides.
This is why I like talking to people smarter than me. Never heard that before. Okay.
I was on a ship for a while. So
is that right? All right. So one thing I've noticed like right away is there's still a lot of, I guess, for lack of better words, stuff in the house from maybe the previous owner.
Right.
A lot of times, I would see somebody come in and actually they're going to do a little bit of demo and they're just going to get stuff out.
Mm-hmm. So we're doing that. We're waiting on our dumpster. So our dumpster hasn't come in yet. So we've been kind of working around, and we don't want to throw just a big pile of trash out in the yard because one, the city doesn't like it, and two, it triggers vandals to know that you've got a house that's being renovated. So it just entices thieves to come in. So we tend to kind of keep everything in the envelope, keep it low key on the outside, so that we don't disturb the neighbors, we don't cause issues with potential theft, things of that nature. So we will have a dumpster delivered later today, and then the guys will kind of shift and they'll start demoing out trash and anything that they've pulled out that's going to get replaced.
Gotcha. So you did hit on something that I know a lot of people are going to have questions about, which is vandalism.
Right.
And that happens a lot, especially in areas like this. And you just mentioned one way for sure that you're going to kind of deter that. Are there any other things that we can do aside from just throwing a big old just pile of crap outside,
right?
Essentially, what other things can we do when we're working on a property, maybe in some of these little more interesting areas?
One of the things that we like to do is we obviously keep the yard area as clean as possible. We don't leave a bunch of trash. We don't leave a bunch of old material stacked up out there, because that's anybody driving by can see what's going on. We always, at the end of the day, everything gets pulled inside the house. There's nothing left outside. We don't leave dumpsters on site. So we utilize pull behind dumpsters. So we just basically found that it was, since we're in the business and we do this all day, every day, we were thousands of dollars a month having dumpsters on sites. And what happens is half of that dumpster gets filled up by your neighbors. So you end up just basically supporting trash dump for your neighbors and everything that they don't want to do and take the trash. So what we did is we went and bought our own pull behind dumpsters. We keep those on site, and then we'll schedule with each job site the days that we will do trash pickup. And so that keeps your yard clean, keeps things that you don't have a big dumpster sitting out there that neighbors can fill up or trigger thieves to let you know that you've got things going on over here. So the key is just try to do as minimal as possible. Just don't tip off people that you're doing renovations, especially in a lower income area, that people driving by tend to take advantage of situations. So you want to make sure that you try to, as quick as possible, secure AC units. Make sure that those things are bolted down, and that all your house is secured, so that we put lockbox systems on everything, but we also make sure that windows are sealed up and there's no entry points from that standpoint.
And I've seen cameras too. I think y'all have done that in the past.
We do. We use we put cameras on every single house. Those will actually go up today here. We use a company called REO Link, and they are Wi-Fi cameras. So they run off of a SIM card through phone company. This one particularly uses T-Mobile SIM cards. And what we like about them is that we don't have to set up Wi-Fi in the house. We don't have to put a cable, all of that kind of stuff in here. We can just hang the cameras. They run off of an app, and they trigger motion. So we'll see anytime somebody comes around the house, it'll trigger us 24 hours a day and let us know. They also have built-in sirens. So a lot of times they'll, deter people comes up. So it's all about those little things that you can do to deter. They have spotlights on them. Though you also want to make sure that you leave lights on. Make sure you leave lights on, exterior and interior. It'll cost you a little bit more on your electrical bill, but it's a lot better than, getting a bunch of material stolen. The other thing we tell our guys is don't ever leave a tool. And at the end of the day, pack up your tools, take them home with you. Don't ever leave equipment in here, and don't leave material that you're not going to be using. So we try to do, as much as possible, we try to do just-in-time delivery. So if we're doing windows, we get the windows get put on site, they get put in that day. Any kind of framing material, that all gets delivered same day, that all gets used same day. So it's little things you just kind of have to, watch and make sure that you're not enticing people to come onto your job site.
And it's obviously different if you were flipping a house like in a Hoover or in a better part of town, and maybe in a nice suburb part of town. You maybe have more liberties to put a dumpster down, maybe have more liberties to put materials in a basement possibly.
Yeah, I mean, you can keep some inside interior, but I can tell you I've had material stolen off of $1 million home site, and I've had material stolen off of a $50,000 home site. It doesn't matter. There are certain people that's just what they do. They drive around looking for work sites and to see if they can get material. So just because it's in a higher end neighborhood doesn't mean it's not going to get stolen. We've had it taken, and unfortunately, a lot of times what you get on a higher end is you get higher value materials. And so that's what they're going after in those. So I still think whether it's, a $50,000 house or $1 million house, put cameras up, make sure you got adequate lighting, and just make sure everything is secure.
Yeah. Okay, so we've gone through the kitchen, and then this back here is the addition. So you said this is the master.
Yeah, so this is your master suite. So this will get, we'll end up doing new flooring in here. Everything will get painted. Obviously windows done. We'll do new lighting in here. One thing we don't ever do in rentals is we don't put ceiling fans in our rentals. It's a maintenance item. They're going to break them. You're going to get a maintenance call about having a ceiling fan in your room. The tenants will ask for them, but you just have to say, look, it's just not something that we'll do.
So tell me about the flooring though. Is there on a rental like this where it's an obvious rental, and you're probably either going to keep it or you might sell it turnkey, whatever it might be. But is there something flooring wise that you guys like to do in most of your rentals?
We have converted pretty much to doing LVP in all of our rentals now.
Now, is that throughout the entire house?
That's going to be throughout the entire house. Anything, unless it is salvageable hardwood flooring. If it's salvageable hardwood flooring, we will, depending on the condition of the flooring, we'll either refinish that flooring or we will use a paint. We will paint and seal. So
the hardwoods.
Yeah, so we'll paint over. And what we like about that is that we can paint those hardwoods and put 2 coats of poly on it, and they look great, but if they get damaged, they're very easy to sand back down and reseal in between tenants as tenant turnover. And then if we ever choose to sell the house to an owner occupant or out on the market, then we can come in and scrape all that, refinish the hardwoods, for relatively inexpensively, and then it'll be nice to do on a retail sale. Yeah. So, but for flooring like this, composite flooring or vinyl, things of that nature, we are always going to go back with a waterproof laminate vinyl plank, LVP.
And that's, and I see that a lot with a lot of folks, even in maybe some $250,000 houses. I see that a lot.
Right.
Tell me why that is. Why the LVP?
Well, they've come a long way with that material. When they first came out with that material, it was pretty cheap. It was, it didn't last very long. But the stuff that they've got now today, I mean, you can pay more for your LVP than you do for traditional hardwood flooring. So it just makes it easier to install. The labor cost is less than going in and doing traditional hardwood floor or tile floor, just less labor intensive. And then and if you get tired of it, you can pull it back out and put in something different, for a relatively inexpensive cost. So we've seen that a lot. We do in some of the higher end stuff. It typically goes into more of a laundry room or into bathrooms or things of that nature. They're still going to try to go with more of a higher grade finish just because of the value of the house. But anything that's 400,000 or less, it's very common to see the new LVP stuff going in now. The good thing is too, it's all waterproof.
Right.
And so from a damage perspective, especially on a rental property, that's one of your main goals is how do we tenant proof a property so that if water gets spilled on it and it's not going to rot out the subfloor or cause damages in other aspects of that nature. So yes, anything that you can do to waterproof or tenant proof a house is helpful.
Okay, so we're in the master bath right now. I'm standing in it, and I see siding right now. So this is obviously the addition.
Right.
So take us through. You've already ripped out the surround. You've ripped out the vanity or the sink and the toilet. So tell me what all you're going to do in here. So and it looks like you're replacing the plumbing too. I see the PEX.
Yeah, all of the plumbing is getting replaced. All of your valves, the PEX is getting done. This bathroom was actually kind of unique because they had the vanity is actually where you were standing.
Let me get over here.
Yeah, they originally had the vanity here, and they had the toilet here, and the toilet was facing into the vanity. So you couldn't even sit down on the toilet without hitting your knees on the vanity. So I don't know whose idea that was when they did it originally, but it didn't work out functionally. So what we did is we had our plumbers come in when we're doing the repiping, and we just moved it to where it should be in a regular setup to where the toilet is next to the tub and the vanity will be in the corner.
And then you're going to go back with some sort of surround. Will you do a fiberglass, or how do you do the tile? What are you doing here?
Yeah, we used to do tile. What we found is tile has to be maintained. The grout lines have to be sealed and on a regular basis. And so every time we would come in and a tenant would move out, we would find that they had never really cleaned it. They had never kept it sealed. It was just a maintenance item. So what we decided is that was for the cost, we would start using just a vinyl surround or a composite built-in system. And those have worked out really well for us. They're inexpensive. They're less than $500 per unit. They're easy to install, and it just really makes things look really nice. And all they got to do is clean them. All they got to do is wipe them down. And even if they don't, when you come in to do it, it's just usually a cleaning solution to get them cleaned out.
Yeah.
So those are definitely. We don't do tile in any showers anymore, especially in a rental. It would have to be a higher end flip or something like that before we would do that.
Gotcha. Yeah, makes sense. Very good. All right. Well, this is the add-on. So it just from a rent standpoint, if it was a 2-1 instead of a 3-2, that's a significant.
It's a huge difference. It's a huge difference. 2 bedrooms are. Typically very difficult to rent. Most of the time, a 3-bedroom 1 or a 3-bedroom 2 is obviously your optimal rental. 3-bedroom 2-bath is ideal because you get the most rent for it. You do get a lot of requests for some of the larger families want 4 bedrooms. They're harder to find. The 4-bedroom 2-baths typically are sold on the retail market to owner occupant. It's just very hard to find those to get them for rentals. But 3-1s, 3-2s, that's your bread and butter here.
But I guess the point I was trying to make though is if this was just a 2-1, if this house was sitting here like it was built and it didn't have the add-on, you guys probably wouldn't even have bought it.
We would not. We would, unless there was the ability for us to make it into a 3-bedroom, and the cost was justified.
Gotcha.
To be able to do that. But you're right. A lot of times we pass on 2-bedroom 1-baths for that simple fact because we can't change it to a 3. But 2 bedrooms are not optimal.
Gotcha.
In this market. Now, there may be markets where 2 bedrooms will rent all day, every day.
And when you say this market, you're not necessarily talking about Birmingham. You're talking about greater Birmingham.
Yeah, I'm talking about the greater Birmingham area. So everything surrounded Birmingham proper. This area, tenants just gravitate towards 3+. And we've had 2 bedrooms in the past, and they've just been very difficult to keep rented or to rent. They sit on the market longer.
Yeah.
For that.
Okay, and now we're just we're gonna wrap up here. We got laundry in the kitchen, which is not uncommon over here. You got water heater. It looks like is it gas?
No, it is electric.
It is electric. So if it were gas, would you go to electric? Would you make it all electric?
We would. Typically, we try to eradicate any gas in the house. So hot water tanks, HVAC units. If it's possible and it's feasible to do it within the budget, then we will take it out.
Do you want to talk about why?
We do that because typically tenants don't like the gas bill.
They don't want an extra bill.
They don't want an extra bill, and some tenants are afraid of gas. They have this either they've been told this growing up or whatever, is that their house is going to blow up if they have a gas leak or something of that nature. So we just try to alleviate that, get it out of the way. We actually get asked consistently when someone comes to rent a property, is it gas or all electric? And if we say gas, then sometimes they'll hesitate for that.
Interesting.
So luckily here with our power companies, if this was a gas unit, our power company will replace your gas unit for free. So
they still do that.
They still do that. They cut it out for a while, but now they've gone back to where they will swap out.
I've gotten many a water heater for free.
Yep, for
sure.
Alabama
Power.
Yep. I wish they would do that with the HVACs.
That's a little too good to be true.
Yeah. So this is an area where we had the band issue. And so when we originally came in, all of this was sagging. So we had a big swell in the floor here. So we had to go in, jack that up, replace the band here, and then put the floor back. And then all of this will get covered with LVP.
Oh, so you're not even going to take the floor up. That makes sense.
Yeah, we won't even take the floor up. We'll just cover it with LVP.
Okay, so this is a front room here.
This was a big bay window that was just basically a water. And when I talked about earlier with getting rid of areas where water will penetrate the house, it served no purpose. I mean, obviously it was a little bit of aesthetic on the outside, but it made no difference in the house. And so cost-wise, it was easier just to demo that bay window and then go back with a single window, framed it out. Yeah, cost-wise, just made more sense.
Perfect. All right, I know they're working back here. I just want to take a little peek. We got a hall bath and probably 2 bedrooms.
Yeah, so your hall bath, much of the same, where we'll take that out and change the plumbing out. Okay. Do some reframing. This floor had a little bit of a sag in the bottom, so we'll go underneath. We'll make sure that gets fixed and brought up to level. You find these floor registers very common in our market. I hate them. It's the worst placement ever for an HVAC.
But it's like they're in all these houses.
But that was just common in the 50s and 60s. That's where they put them. They put them in the hallway.
Because the ductwork is in the crawl versus the attic.
Yeah, so sometimes you can come in and there'll be the opportunity where there'll be a closet or there'll be a wall that has the ability for you to reroute that. And if that's the case, then if you can get rid of that, it's great. A lot of times it's cost prohibitive to do it.
And you could potentially put it in the wall if this was a closet.
If this had something behind it where you could build a return box in it, you could put it in the closet and make it that way. But we just don't have that in this small hallway to be able to do that.
And they're working here. I'm just take a quick little peek. We got bedroom number 1, and then we've got bedroom number 2. And this is where you've actually you already said you're replacing windows.
Yep. Yeah. So all of the windows in this house will get replaced. So it'll make it much more energy efficient down the road. Obviously looks nicer. It'll increase the value of the house having that done. This is a situation where these hardwoods are actually in good shape. So we would actually come in and we'll do a light sand on these. We'll paint and then put 2 coats of poly on them. And we use what's called a deck and porch paint. It's much more durable than just your regular paint. And you can get it tinted in whatever color you want to get it tinted in.
So you'll have, it looks like these floors are going into the hall and into the other bedroom. So you'll keep this flooring here, and then maybe starting from
Well, we'll actually break it. We'll do the hallway in LVP.
Okay.
And then into the den, but
And
we'll
then
break
to
it
the
at
bathroom
the,
over
at
here
the,
as
the
well.
doors, yeah, and then in the bathroom.
Yeah. Very good. Awesome. What have we not covered? I feel like we've been pretty thorough.
Yeah, I mean, I think we covered pretty much most of it. It's just every house is unique. Every house is going to have its own challenges. It's going to have its own thing. That's just the nature of getting into remodeling an older house. And so you just kind of have to take those things into consideration. Get a contractor, get a general contractor, get an inspector, get somebody to go through whatever house it is. If you're not knowledgeable enough at this point or experienced enough in it, make sure you get somebody to go through these houses, because if you don't, I guarantee you will find something when you start pulling back walls and trash out. You're going to find something that you didn't know, and it's going to cost you, and potentially could just blow your whole budget out.
Also, I want to ask you some questions about that. Let's come out here though.
Okay.
So Jeff, to that point, I mean, that's a really important point, especially for folks who are maybe not brand new, but newer. And for folks who maybe haven't worked on some of these older houses. You've got a lot of experience. You've been doing these houses for such a long time. Is there a piece of advice you could give someone who maybe hasn't done a house like this, or maybe is newer, about these type of houses? I mean, how do we find a contractor? How do we find someone who kind of knows what they're doing? They're probably going to take advantage of us, but maybe not too bad.
Yeah, contractors a lot of times get a bad rap, and rightfully so. Sometimes, depending on who you're dealing with, you can get some bad ones. I've been in the business for 20 plus years, and every now and then I still come across a guy that tries to rip us off. But there's some signals that you can look for when you're interviewing a contractor. Anybody that wants an upfront payment, it's not a good idea. The way we typically structure deals is, if you need materials to get started, we supply all materials. So we don't put that on the contractor, so that's not something they have to work on. We usually just negotiate our labor cost for them, and then we pay them on a draw system based on the length of the project. And so that's things. You always want to have a dedicated scope of work. You always want to have a very clear, concise scope of work, and it can't just be fixed wall. Like, it's got to be detailed. It needs to be to the specific, because these guys will follow that to the letter. And you don't want them to make assumptions of how you want it fixed. You want to make sure that you're clear, concise, and that you'll get better with that over the time and the more you do it. But the less thought that you can take out of it for that contractor, and to make it to where it's clear and concise. It also gives you the ability to hold them to task as far as when they get their draws. So you can go in and say, okay, well, you did X, Y, Z on this scope of work, and that should equate to X amount of draw. So you never get behind. That's the worst thing you want to do with a contractor, is get behind on your payments, which means that he's already gotten 60, 70% of his draw out of there, and then you guys have a disagreement, and he leaves and gets off, or he walks off the job site, and then you got to come back and finish it. Well, that second guy is always going to be more expensive than the first guy, because he's coming in behind somebody to fix something. So you can always guarantee that will cost you more money to do that. So as far as looking at contractors, always referral based. Talk to people that you know in the business. Most people are friendly. They're gonna give you good referrals. Look at jobs. Go, hey, show me a job you're working on. Go look at something that they're doing. Talk to those customers. Find out, hey, were they satisfied? Did they do a good job? Those types of things. Don't just take their word for it, because everybody's going to tell you they're going to do a great job. Nobody's going to tell you they're going to come in and screw you. It's just you gotta do those things on the front end to make sure that you don't get hosed by your contractor. One of the last things I'll say on a contractor too is check their licensing. Make sure they've got a license to do the trade that they're doing with the municipality or the state that they're working in. That's a big thing too. Make sure they've got licensing. Check their insurance. Make sure they've got liability and workers' comp insurance. Those are huge things too. A good reputable contractor, those things are not cheap, is what I'm saying. Insurance for contractors is expensive. And so if they have the ability to maintain that insurance, it means that they're doing good work and they're getting, you know, regular work. Because if they weren't getting regular work, they wouldn't be able to afford their insurance premiums. Yeah. So those are things that can kind of give you some triggers to know that you're dealing with somebody that's reputable.
For sure. Jeff, before we go, take us through the numbers a little bit if you don't mind. Do you remember what you bought the house for?
So we paid $54,000 for this house, which is kind of crazy because a couple of years ago we would have probably paid half of that.
$54,000. I mean, I remember like selling them for that.
I know,
like when they were fixed up.
I know. This is, you know, I can remember in 2010 to 2015. I mean, I would pay for a house like this. I would pay $10,000 to $12,000 for this house.
Question about it.
And I would put probably $25,000 to $35,000 into it and rent it for $900 and just cash flow all day long.
Or sell it turnkey for like $59,000, maybe $69,000 if you're lucky, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So you bought it for $50,000?
We bought it for $54,000.
And you're gonna put?
And we're gonna put right at about $28,000.
Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah, so we'll put about 20. So and then, you know, we'll have a market value of around 150 to 160 when it's all said and done.
Is that because of the rents? You base that off the rents? Talk about that for a second.
Yeah. So, you know, obviously when you're doing rentals, it's all about cash flow, and rentals are based off of cash flow numbers. So if you're getting $1,000 a month in rent, then you should at least have a market value after you've done all your repairs of $100,000 on the house. So, and that's kind of falls within, at a minimum, you want to be at that 1% rule for your cash flow numbers.
Now you're talking about when you, like as the investor, when I buy, if I'm the investor, I'm buying this, I want to look in these type of maybe C areas of Birmingham, I want to look for that 1% rule.
Yeah, at a minimum. You at least want to hit what they call the 1% rule, which means that if you're renting for $1,000, your value after repair is going to be $100,000. So just for good round numbers, but that's the formula that you want to look at. You want to try to stay in that 1% rule.
So as an out-of-state or out-of-town investor, or maybe I'm in town and I just don't know a ton about it, what are some things I can look for when I'm coming here? I'm doing my inspections. I want to make sure this is a property I want to buy, and it's already probably got a tenant in it. What are some things I can look for to make sure that people like you did a good job of working on it?
You mean pre-rehab or post-rehab?
No, post-rehab. You've already rehabbed it. Supposedly, I'm buying a turnkey product, okay? You've already rehabbed it, and there's already a tenant in place. How do I know that whoever sold it to me did a good job?
Well,
and didn't do lipstick on a pig.
Yeah. Well, if you don't know construction, the best thing to do is to hire a third-party service to come in and do an inspection and give them the scope of work and say, these are the things that we're supposed to get done, and then have that person verify that they were done. You know, it's hard to look behind walls. So plumbing and electrical and those types of things, you know, unless you've seen them actually do it or you've been along. Say the other thing I would say is do regular inspections during the rehab. You know, don't just wait from the day one and not come and see it again until it's done.
Right. Well, this house isn't on the market right now. Right. This house isn't for sale, so I don't know that I'm buying it yet.
Well, in that case, if you're buying after the fact, then the best way is just to make sure you get a full inspection done on it. Yeah. Get a copy of the scope of work that was done.
Now, is that something I can get a copy of?
Sure. Okay. Absolutely. Okay.
That's good.
So just get we do a paper scope of work on every single house for us to know what we've done, and also for our guys to make sure they know exactly what needs to be addressed. Doing it also helps for scheduling as well. Yeah. But get a copy of the scope of work, have somebody come in, have them do the inspection.
Jeff, I appreciate you, man. This has been great.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Awesome.